The year is March 6th, 2323. 300 years have passed. I am in my 320s, and we're still wondering whether or not Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 will eventually come out. Well, to get the cringe out of the way, guys, I recently posted a poll asking you guys if you think Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 will eventually come out, and as of the recording of when I did this video, it was exactly 50-50 if you can see the picture on your screen right here. The numbers may have changed since I've been recording this and putting this on YouTube. And in the next few days, when it has 30 to 40,000 votes, we will have a better answer of what people think. But it is insane to see how split the Dragon Ball community actually is on this topic, considering the fact that this is a very good question. Do you think Budokai Tenkaichi 4 is going to essentially put Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 out of the picture? And the first thing that we gotta talk about here today, guys, is the apparent rumor that Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 is planning on coming out in 2024. If it is true, it just wouldn't make sense to put two different 3D fighting games that close out towards each other. Because when you actually look at the actual types of games that they are, Xenoverse 3 would generally be similar to Budokai Tenkaichi 4 in the fact that they're both 3D fighters. But the key difference, obviously, is that the fighting mechanics are obviously different, and also considering the fact that when you look at the story mode, that's really where they're completely different, where Budokai Tenkaichi 3, or Budokai Tenkaichi in general, tried to follow the conventional Dragon Ball story mode, and it didn't care about including GT events, and obviously Dragon Ball Super didn't exist when Budokai Tenkaichi 3 came out last time. So considering all of that stuff, it's going to be a very stacked story mode to include all of the Super events. And this isn't even counting if Super comes back. If Super comes back and then you start counting DLC and improved internet connections, I mean, this thing is going to go completely wild. So when you think about it like that, guys, the whole rumor about it coming out in 2024 would just be a very bad business decision when you consider how close it actually would be to Budokai Tenkaichi 4 coming out. But then we also have to factor in some other things, guys, like generational desire. Because the reason why Budokai Tenkaichi 4 is getting so much hype right now is simply because of the fact that it has been so long since the game came out. And yeah, I mean, Raging Blast was similar and all of that, and then you also had like Ultimate Tenkaichi, but when you actually think about it, it's the same exact effect that Dragon Ball Super had in 2015 when that came out, where you had Dragon Ball fans that were literally starving for new content. So when Super came out, we watched the series with rose-tinted glasses because everything Super did was so great, because simply having new Dragon Ball was just so awesome. And as the show continued, and as we went through the first arcs, we obviously could see that there were flaws in it. And I think because of this, the generational desire for Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is just so much stronger than Xenoverse because Xenoverse is more recent. But then, guys, in the future, we're going to have a reciprocal effect. Because we have to remember that just like a lot of us grew up with Dragon Ball Z in the Toonami boom, there are a lot of people who are younger that grew up with the Xenoverse game. And at a certain point, just like Budokai Tenkaichi, these fans are going to have a huge generational desire for a Xenoverse 3. And when that happens, with a bunch of other Dragon Ball games mixed in between, I can expect us to see Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 coming out in the future. And then we also have to think about, you know, obviously the biggest factor of all, money. I think when you think about the fact that the name branding itself separates the two games, we know that this basically means that money is just going to be too hot the longer that we wait for a Xenoverse 3 release. And as a result of this, when Budokai Tenkaichi 4 obviously cools down, which will take several years, it's expected that Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 would come out. Now, for those of you who have been very patient for Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3, this really sucks for you, but we also have to factor in one more thing. The return of the Dragon Ball Super anime is going to have a huge impact on both of these games because, obviously, with DLC packages and also new characters, that's just going to increase the amount of sales. And considering the fact that there hasn't been a Budokai Tenkaichi game in so long, even if there's no Super for years, you have to remember that with all of the new stuff that has happened in Super, the game itself is going to be so huge that it wouldn't make sense to put Xenoverse out early if Budokai Tenkaichi comes in before. So ultimately, guys, I feel like there's way too much content and there's way too much money to be lost for this to not happen, but the honest truth is, is that Xenoverse 3 might not happen in our lifetimes.